Hey class, in this video we're going to be going over how to add sound into our Godot scenes. So I'm on the labs page. You'll notice we have two labs this week. We're doing sound today, and then we'll also look at exporting the game, which is going to be pretty simple. For the sound lab, it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to be adding a bunch of sounds into different parts of the game. We're actually going to be writing some code for the first time. And it's really easy. It's just like a couple lines of code. So it'll be kind of a nice way to introduce how to add some of your own code into the project. I haven't posted this video, obviously, so this link isn't there, but you'll also notice that there's no lab link. So there's no files to download. We're going to be downloading some sounds, and I'll go over how to do that. But then any new code, you're actually going to be able to add on your own. So there's no new files to download for this lab. So before we can actually put sounds into the game, we're going to have to download some sounds. And you can see I have a bunch of links to places where we can get free and Creative Commons licensed sounds to use in our game. You might have friends that also make music or sound effects for games, and you could collaborate with them as well. But let's look at a few places where we can get some sounds just to use in our game. The first one is itch.io. If you go to itch.io /game assets, you'll see that a lot of people upload packs of assets. Most of them are related to like, art, like different pixel art and, things like that. But if we search for music, we can look at stuff related to music. We can see there's a bunch of different audio packs, 16-bit, 8-bit, different things. So if you have a specific idea in mind of what you want your game to sound like, you could search there. We could also look for sound effects like SFX, and you'll find some more, packs, and you can go there. And if you find something that you like, let's get rid of the music tag real quick. I added that on top. So if you find something that looks good, like we could take a look at this one. Usually on itch, they'll have something in the description about how it should be used. So this one says you may use and edit these assets for both non-commercial and commercial games. So it's pretty open. Please consider donating something if you use them. Some will ask for attribution or have other kind of directions for how to use the games. So make sure you check that before you just throw it into the game. It doesn't really matter that much if you're not planning to publish it because you're not really using the other person's work, as long as we're just using it in class. But it is a good thing to kind of keep in mind. So you can download all these files and take a look at how they sound. And if you find something that looks like it fits the idea of your game, you can just download a whole pack of sounds and then just like plug them in wherever you want. So that's a good way to go about it. Find a pack on itch.io that matches what you're doing, and just use their sounds. The library of sound game sounds on opengameart.org is another good place that has a bunch of different packages for stuff. So it has kind of descriptions, RPG sound pack, UI sound effects, digital sound effects. There's also stuff like sci-fi sounds and beeps, thunder, rain, and wind. So you can find all these different kinds of sound effects that might be useful for your game, and you can also preview them on here. So let's see, if I want to add some thunder or rain, I can preview that and see if it sounds good. And if I like that, I can click on it and go download it. I may need to log in, or maybe I can just download it. Yeah, I can just download it. So I could use some, rain sound effects there. I might need to edit it. It looks like it's one file. Let's take a look at that. So this comes as an archive. I'm gonna have to unarchive it. Okay, and then we can see there's a whole bunch of sound files in here. And in a minute, we'll go over, what the different types of sound files that we should use for Godot are. These are all WAV files, so that's good. So then another place that's just general, it's not specifically for game sounds, is freesound.org. But you can search game sounds. So I might say like game music loop. And sometimes you want to find like a short loop so you can play it over and over again. And you can see there's a few examples here. I can preview them. Okay, that's pretty cool. Arcade music. So that's pretty cool. If I want to download things from freesound.org, I have to have a login. You can see I'm already logged in. If you're not logged in, you can create an account. It's free, obviously. So that's pretty easy. And then you can take a look at this. This is a wave, so that's good. We like wave files. You can see the duration and some other information. And if I want to use it, I can click download. One thing with freesound.org is they tend to have very long file names because it has like the file ID, the user, and the music. So I'm just going to change the name to make it a little bit easier. So this is arcade music loop. So I've got a couple sounds now. Free Music Archive is another place where you can find music that's not necessarily related to games, but you'll find a lot of different types of music. So you can search on here, go to genres. Since I'm doing a game, I might do like electronic. There's like more genres, so I might say, let's try minimal electronic, and then you can preview these sounds. So I might play a couple and see how they sound. Could be cool. Also kind of interesting. Let's try. I kind of like the sound of that. Might fast forward a little bit, see where it's going. Okay, that's pretty cool. So I'll try this one out. I'm going to click download. And then it tells me some information about the Creative Commons license. This song is free to use under specific conditions. I can go to continue reading. Attribution non-commercial. So I wouldn't be able to use this if I was planning to sell my game. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to click and download. Since we're doing this for class, I'm not really worried about selling it. So now I have some more background music right here. And notice that's an MP3. We'll go over that in a second. So then we can go over to this last link. This is called jfxr. This is a program that I really like using a lot where I can actually generate sounds instead of using other people's sounds, but it's geared towards creating video game sounds. And there's also versions of this program. This is based on something called cfxr or sfxr. I can't remember which one the original one is, but if I look up cfxr, you can see, okay, so cfxr is the Mac port of sfxr, which I guess must be the original. And so sfxr you can see is this like program. You can download that for Windows if you want to use it there, but there's also a JavaScript browser version, so it's pretty easy to use this here. And they have some basic defaults for different types of sounds. So there's like a pickup coin sound, shoot sound, explosion, power up, hurt, hit, jump. And so there's a bunch of different types of sounds. And then once I play the sound, I can mutate it. So if I get a pickup or a coin sound, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good, but what would it sound like if it was a little different? I can click mutate. And I can also adjust the parameters myself. So let's get an explosion, and I can kind of play around with these parameters. I don't have time to go into what all of these different things mean, but we can set all these different parameters. That's going to change how the sound plays. And then once you get something that you like, you can download that. So I'm actually going to use this for some of my sound effects. So for the sound effects, actually, let's take a look at what we actually need to put in our game. So I'll just make a little list over here. So first we need some background music. And you can have like one track for the main scene and another for the start menu, or whatever you want to do is fine. You can have a lot of different tracks. You can have it like play different tracks as you get to different levels, however you want to do it. I'm just going to do a couple different tracks. So I'll have one for the start scene, and I'll have another one for the main game scene. So that's music that's just playing in the background. It doesn't like react to what's happening in the game. Then we want some sound effects that react to what's happening in the game. So sound effects. I want a sound to play whenever the scene changes, so that we know that we changed the scene. So I'm going to say change scene. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the different options that you might have there. Then we want for our player, we want like a jump sound. And then we want a sound if the player dies. So like a game over sound. And I think that's actually... You could add a lot of other sounds for different, if you go right or left or whatever, but for now we'll just stick with those two. Then for my obstacle, we have an attack sound if we hit the player, and we have a hit sound if the player hits the obstacle. And then for our item, we have the collect sound. So if we collect an item. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sounds that we have to put in. So it sounds like a lot, but as we looked at in the sound lecture, video games have like tons of sounds in them now these days for like all these different little parts. And we kind of went over that list in class the other day. So let's start here with our sound effects. So I'm gonna get a change scene sound. So let's turn our list off. And maybe I'll just hit random and see if that sounds good. So I'm gonna hit random. That's a little too long. I might shorten it. That's actually not bad for a change scene sound. It kind of, it's like almost like we teleported there. My game isn't really like in space or anything like that, but since I'm just doing this demo, I'm just gonna go with it. So if I like the sound, I click export, and then we'll see we get random 1.wave. We might wanna rename that if you're gonna have a hard time remembering it, since it just says random. So I'm gonna say this is scene change.wave. So then let's get a couple more. So the next one I need is the player jump, and there's a jump button. So we can hit jump. That was okay. That was pretty good. That's kind of funny. You might go for something more funny. That one I liked a lot. I'm gonna turn the frequency down a bit. That's pretty good. And I can also edit that in Godot. So I'm gonna export that as my jump. So then I need the game over sound. So for this, maybe I want like an explosion. That's pretty good. Let's mutate that. Okay, let's try again. Let's try. Let's start again. I want like a longer explosion. I'm gonna try power up. Okay, let's try random. Okay, that's a pretty good game over. I'm gonna make it a little bit shorter and turn down the... Okay, that's pretty good. I like that. So I'm gonna export that. Random obviously is gonna be random, so you might not get the thing you like right away. And since this is random, I'm gonna call this game over, just so I don't forget what that is. The next one I need is attack for the obstacle, right? So the obstacle attack. So let's try like a laser shoot. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's listen to that again. Let's turn it down a little bit. And yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'm gonna export that. So laser shoot 6, and I'll just change this to attack, obstacle attack. So I know what it is. Next we have the obstacle hit. So this is if the player hits the obstacle. So we can try hit hurt for that. That was pretty good. I'm gonna turn that one down again. Okay, and maybe try that one. There we go. So we'll export that. Hit hurt, I'll probably be able to remember what that is, so I'm just gonna leave that as is. And then we just need the item collect. So there's a pickup coin. Pretty good. Oh, I like that one. That one was good. Okay, I'm just gonna go with that. That was perfect. So pickup coin. So now I have my pickup coin. I'm going through this kind of fast since I'm just doing the demo, but you can spend more time tweaking it and getting the right sound. And you can always go back and change the sounds if they don't work out the way you want them to. So I think I have all my sounds now. And one thing that's good is most of my sounds are waves. And so there's 2 file types that Godot can use. I'm gonna bring up my thing again. So I can use, for Godot, I can use 2 file types, wave Okay, wave is good for like sound effects because it's a type of compression where it's lossless, so it doesn't actually like remove any of the data. Let me turn this on. So it's lossless. It doesn't lose any of the data. So it's good for shorter sounds so that you have a lot of fidelity in the sound. But you don't want it for longer sounds because it's going to take up too much space. So wave is good for short sound effects. The other sound that you can use is an OGG, which is Ogg Vorbis, which is a more recent sort of compression standard, relatively recent. One thing that you might notice that's left out of that is MP3, which is a very common sound format. Godot does not support MP3s. So because MP3s are so common, you're going to end up downloading a lot of them, especially for music. And so if you do get an MP3, there's an easy way to turn it into an OGG. You can download the program Audacity. If you guys have taken MMP 100 or something like that, you've probably already used this program. If you haven't, I'll put a link to the download. It's pretty easy to use, but I have this MP3 that I downloaded from Free Music Archive. I'm gonna go ahead and open with Audacity. I already have it installed, so I'll put a download link if you need to use it. Hopefully you won't have to do this, but if you have an MP3 and you want to turn it into something you can use, you'll have to do that. So all you have to do is once you have it open in Audacity, we don't need to edit anything. You could if you want to try, editing it, but you don't need to. Just go to File, Export, and export as OGG, and that's pretty much all I have to do. So I'm just going to say biounit groundeffect.ogg. That looks pretty good. I'm going to click Save. You probably won't see this. That's something I have enabled. And then click OK. And that's going to take a second. And now we're good to go. So I'm just going to quit Audacity. And I don't actually want to save this project because that's kind of like the PSD file for if I want to go back and edit it later. So I don't need to save that project. Now I have the OGG. I also have like a WAV file for my music, which is kind of large. It's 6 megabytes. So if I wanted to turn that into an OGG, that would make sense as well. Anything that's like a little bit longer, you might want to, make that an OGG file because it's going to be smaller file size. So I'll do that real quick. I'm just going to open it up, export as OGG, and then save. I'm still in my downloads folder. I'm going to move all of this stuff over to my project folder soon. Okay, so now I have my music, and see now that's only 738 kilobytes. So that's a lot smaller. That's gonna be really nice when I export the game. I won't, it's not gonna take up as much space if I wanna email it to somebody or send it to somebody like that. We can see the MP3 was actually pretty large too, 8.7 megabytes, versus the OGG file is only 3.1 megabytes. So we're saving a lot of space by using OGG files rather than longer waves or MP3s. For our sound effects, they're very small because they're very short. This is only 2 seconds long. So even though it's a WAV file, it's only 160 kilobytes. I could convert that to an OGG file, but I'll just leave it as is. For now, it's not gonna be a huge problem. So now I finally have all of the audio that I want to use. So we need to make sure to put this in our game file. So I'm gonna move my folder over here. I'm going to open up my MMP 270 project folder. And here's lab 5. If I want to just get started on the old lab, I can just throw stuff in here. As I've been doing, I kind of make a new lab each time. So I'm just going to hit Command D and duplicate this and call it lab 6. And all we're going to be doing is adding audio and then adding a few things into the project. So I'm actually going to add a new folder so I can keep everything nice and organized. Kind of call this capital A audio. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but that'll make it easier to find. And then I'm just going to drag everything that I need over. So I have my sound effects and the rest of my sound effects. And then I just need my OGG files. If you want to save the original files in the folder, you can, but you don't need to. The rest of this stuff I don't really need anymore. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. You don't really need to, but I like to keep things nice and clean. So I'm going to delete those from my downloads folder. And so now I have everything I need inside my audio folder. I have my 2 sound files. I have all of my sound effects. And if we need to come back and get some more sound effects later, we can always do that and just add them in here. So once I have all that set up, I'm going to open my Godot project. Since I'm on Mac, I'm just gonna double click project.godot inside my lab folder. If you're on Windows and you don't have the Godot exe set up, linked to this file, you may need to open Godot first and then find this project.godot and open that. Hopefully by this point you guys have figured that part of the process out. So we have Godot open and we should have our new audio file here. I'm gonna go to my small view. Okay. And just make sure the sound, okay, that looks good. Okay, so let's zoom in. So we're on the start menu to start, so we might as well begin here. And let's take a look at our audio folder. So if I open audio, I was gonna let's use the arcade music loop for our start scene. And one thing that you might wanna look at, if I double click on this, we can actually preview the music over here. And you can kind of like move your cursor around if you wanna play different parts. You can also set whether it's loop. For OGG, it looks like it looped it by default, which is actually good because we want the music to play again when it's done. So that's actually good. We'll leave it like that. So the OGG setting is looped by default. So that's good. If we go to one of the .wav files, there's some other settings. We can kind of like force it to be 8-bit if we want. We can trim the file. Let's open up this game over file. So if I hit play, I don't think it needs to be trimmed, but what happens if I hit trim? Oh, I have to re-import it. Oh, I have to go back. That seems pretty much the same. I don't think we really need to do this. Loop is by default off if it's a WAV file, so it's actually assuming that your WAV files are sound effects, but you only want to play once. You don't want to play them over and over again. So we're gonna leave the loop off, so we don't need to do anything there. And I'm not gonna do any compression right now. I think this seems fine. I think everything there is good. And yeah, I think everything about that looks pretty good. So let's actually add in some music. So I'm gonna go to the scene, I'm gonna go to the main node, and I'm gonna click add child node. And so here is, you have to be careful. There's 3 types of AudioStreamPlayers. An AudioStreamPlayer is a node that we can put a sound file in, and then we can trigger that sound to play. And one thing that you want to be really careful is that you don't choose an AudioStreamPlayer 2D. What that does is it actually can, change where the sound is in the scene, so you can like pass a sound. That might be cool if you want to add those, different sounds throughout your game, like it's raining over here and it's snowing over here or whatever. But if you want the sound to be the same volume everywhere in the scene, then you want to just choose a regular AudioStreamPlayer. And we're going to be using those for every part of this project. If you want to add some 2D AudioStreamPlayers in the future to kind of like spatialize the sound and do different cool things, you should definitely check that out. There's also an AudioStreamPlayer 3D, which should be in a 3D scene. Obviously, we're not making 3D scenes, so we're not going to deal with that. So let's just choose the regular AudioStreamPlayer, and you can always switch them to different nodes if you make a mistake here. So we're going to take an AudioStreamPlayer. I'm going to go ahead and give this a name so I know what it's for. I'm going to call this background music, BG music, and then I can drag my guy over here, or I can do what I usually do and click, load from there. So that looks pretty good. You can see there's a bunch of options here. One thing that we really want to make sure is we don't actually need code to play this sound because it's just in the background, but we do need to make sure that autoplay is on. If that's not on, it's we're not going to hear it. So now that we've got that on, let's play the scene and see if it worked. Cool. So we hear some music. It's most likely going to be too loud. I find that a lot of the time I see myself turning sounds down. So there's a volume dB setting right here. One thing that you'll notice is it's set to 0, and 0 is actually like full. 0 is like it's playing the sound essentially at the loudness that it was recorded at. So if you want to make the sound lower in decibels, we're probably going to want to do something like -24. That's going to make the sound quieter. If you go in the positive direction, it's going to make the sound louder. Notice you can also pitch the sound. That might make more sense with sound effects. I'm not going to do that with the music. There's a few other things here that I'm not going to worry about for now. So if I change the volume of the sound and I play it again, it should be a little quieter. So that's pretty good. That's a good volume, I think. This song seems to get a little bit louder at the beginning. This is also just my intro scene, so nothing else is really going on. And so that was pretty much it for that scene. That was pretty easy. If you want to add music into other scenes, like the instructions and stuff like that, you just basically go through the same process. One thing that I'll just cover right now is there's a few different ways that you could go about adding the change scene sound. So I have a bunch of buttons, and right now nothing happens if I click a button sound-wise. If I click instructions, it just goes to the instruction scene. So one thing you can do is you can make the button play a sound and then wait until the sound is over to switch scenes. But we don't really want to make the user wait that long. So what we can do instead is just add a change scene directly into that scene itself. So if I go to the scenes and go to instructions, I'm going to add another audio here, but this is going to be the change scene sound that's just going to play once. So I'm going to add another child node, AudioStreamPlayer, and I'm just going to say change scene. And for this one, I'm going to click over here, click load, go to audio, and then I had change scene or scene change. Either way is fine. And so let's make this autoplay so it'll just play when we open the instruction scene. So that way we don't really have to worry so much about having the UI have its own specific sound. If you want to have each button have a different sound, you could do that, and we could go over how to set it up, but it's a little bit more complicated code-wise. So if I go to instructions, I should hear that sound play. Okay, cool. And now when I hit start game, I want to hear that sound play again. So let's implement that. And so now we can move on to our main scene. So let's go to our main scene. And in here, I'm going to collapse everything. We're actually going to have both the change scene and the background music. So we're going to start playing new background music and the change scene at the same time. And I'm going to add these just both into my main hierarchy. If you have a lot of different sounds in different places, you might want to make like another node like we have for our obstacles or items to organize the sounds a little bit better. I'm just going to have two sounds, so I'm not too worried about it. So let's add another child node and make sure we're adding the regular AudioStreamPlayer. It looked like it had selected AudioStreamPlayer 2D for me, so now I'm worried that I added the wrong one before, but I think it's okay. Let's just make sure to only add the AudioStreamPlayer, not the 2D. Okay, so let's call this change scene. I'm kind of just repeating the same stuff here. I'm gonna use the same sound. You could have different sounds for different scenes, because obviously you have multiple ones of these nodes. So we have the scene change sound, and we want that to be autoplay. And then we are going to add another one. I keep selecting the audio 2D player. That's not what I want. Okay, AudioStreamPlayer. This accidentally got put inside of my change scene, so let's put that here. And let's call this BG Music. And we're gonna load our other track here. So I'm gonna go to load, go to audio, and this is our bio unit track. I'm gonna assume that this one is gonna be louder than I want. Since it's background music, I'm gonna do -24 for the volume and click autoplay on. The change scene, I'm gonna start with 0. I might need to bring that volume down if it's too loud. So let's try that now. Okay, so that's pretty good because the change scene sound is pretty loud, so we know we're kind of like starting a new scene. And then you can start to hear the sound of the music in the background, but it's like, it's not too loud. It's kind of like, you know, it's there, but it's not taking up a lot of space, which is really nice. Cool. So that's pretty good so far. So now we have to add in our other sound effects, and we're gonna do those in our player scene, our obstacle scene, and our item scene. And we're gonna start to see that the volumes are gonna start to be all over the place, and we're gonna have to kind of switch between different scenes to make sure those volumes are, you know, kind of work together. So that is a little bit more complicated, but we'll start trying to do that. And this is where we're also going to start adding some code to play our sounds at the right time. So let's start with our player. I'm going to double click player scene. And so we only have a jump and a game over scene for the player, because those things are both happening in the player script. There's other things that you could add if you want, like some sound for the player walking and stuff like that. If you want to add more, we could always go over how to do that, or you could play around with it. But for now, we're just going to add 2. So I'm going to go to my player and add a child node, audio stream. I don't want 2D. Keep selecting that for me. I know that I want 2, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this one. So let's call this jump sound. And even though I can see that it's a sound because it's like a little player here, that's going to help me in my code to kind of make sure that I'm not, overwriting different variables. So then I have a game over sound. And so that way, if I have like a jump variable, it's not going to overlap with my jump sound, since I'm calling it jump sound. So let's put our sounds in here. Gonna go to load, audio. I have my jump right here. I'm gonna click open. And I'm not gonna click autoplay here, because we're not gonna automatically play the sound. We're gonna wait until the player jumps. So I'm gonna leave all of the rest of those properties the same. Game over sound, I'm gonna click load, audio, and game over. And so that was pretty easy. So now we're gonna write some code. So I have the jump sound, I have the game over sound. It's very easy to add those into the code. So I'm gonna click on the player script to open that up over here. And so now we just have to scroll through and find the part where we do the jump or we do the game over. So those are pretty easy to find. So let's just scroll down a bit. You can see right here, there's the jump input, and this is where the jump is applied. And so we're just gonna add it right under there. We're gonna reference the jump sound by using a $sign. That's a special way of referencing stuff in our scene. So we're gonna say jump sound, and it already actually knows what's there. So I could just, once I start typing jump, it's gonna fill it out for me. I'm just gonna hit jump sound and then .play. And it's also filling that out for me as well. And it adds those parentheses for me. And I don't need anything else inside there. So that's pretty much all I have to do for the jump sound. So then let's try adding the game over sound. So this one is down here. You can see there's a function called game over. There's also like a game over variable that already exists. That probably could use a better variable name, like game over UI, because that's what it is. But good thing we can just call this game over sound. And again, we use the $sign to reference the sound in the hierarchy. That's a special little Godot thing that connects our script to what we wrote over here. So this game over sound has to match the name of the sound over here. And so same thing here, we just say .play. So it just plays the sound once, and that's it. And it's not set to looping, so it's only gonna play once, so that's perfect. And that's it, that's all the code we have to add for this scene. So that's just 2 lines of code. I have to go back to the main scene to see how this works. So I'm gonna hit play. Okay, so now if I jump, it should play a sound. So that looks pretty good, or sounds pretty good rather. And now if I jump over the edge, okay, I get my game over sound. And that's nice because it's queued up with when the game over scene or UI appears. And if I hit play again, since it's loading the scene, it should actually play the change scene sound again. So let's test that. Perfect. Okay. And the game over sound played when I died from the snake attack as well. So that's actually good. So now we just have to add in our obstacle and our item. So that was pretty easy. So now let's move on to our obstacle scene. And I'm gonna click on the obstacle to move over here. So our obstacle has 2 different parts. It has the part where it attacks the player and the part where the player hits it. So let's put 2 sounds in for that. I'm gonna go to obstacle, right click, and add child node. AudioStreamPlayer, it keeps selecting 2D, so be careful. So AudioStreamPlayer, let's do a attack sound. And then I'm gonna do Command D or Control D to duplicate, and let's just call this hit sound. And so then we just add those sounds and then find the code where we want those to go in. So I'm gonna click load audio. This is the attack sound. So let's see, what did I have for that? Obstacle attack. Okay, and then the hit sound. So we'll go to load, and this one is hit hurt, open. Okay, so that's good. So now we just have to add where we want these to appear in the code. So I'm gonna click on the script next to the obstacle. That brings up my obstacle script, and I have to find when does the obstacle attack the player and when does the player hit the obstacle. So there's a couple different events for that. The one where the player hits the obstacle is called on top check body entered. And you can see that that's what's happening because it says animations play die. So that's a good clue that this is where we want to play that sound. So I'm going to go to the end of my script. I'm going to grab that sound again by doing, this is hit sound and dot play. And that's it for the code. And so next I'm going to find here, it says on front check body entered. So that's when the player hits the snake. See, it says animations.play attack. So that's a pretty good sign that we're attacking the player. So then we just say attack sound, and don't forget the $sign so that we're getting the element from our hierarchy, and we get attack sound.play. So that should be good enough for the code. Let's go back to our main scene and see if that works. So I'm gonna try to jump on one snake. Okay, so I got that guy. And then this guy, I need to die, so. Okay, so we get the attack sound and then the game over sound. So that's pretty good. I might wanna change those sounds. I don't know if they really match that well, but they sound okay, and the volume's pretty decent as well. So that's pretty good. So we just have one more sound to add in our item. So let's double click on the item, and we're gonna add another sound node as usual. AudioStreamPlayer, and I'm gonna go over here, go to load, go to audio, and then this one is the pickup coin. So I'll click open, and that looks good. And I'm just gonna change this to collect sound. So that's the sound we play when we collect the item. And then we have a script again for the item. So I'll click on the script, and this is a pretty short script. We can see that when the body enters the item, if the item is not collected, then we just go down to the bottom, and we're gonna say collect sound.play. And that is the last line of code that we have to add. So it's pretty straightforward, but it's a good chance to look at the code, how it works, and actually add some new code. So if you have like different sounds that you wanna add, you could think about how to do that. So we have to go back to our main scene, and let's test this last bit. So I have to get past the snakes. Might want to speed up that animation at some point. Okay, cool. So when I get the apple, I maybe should have gotten like a apple chomping sound or something like that instead of a regular like coin sound, but at least it works. And I don't have anything else in my scene, so we'll add some stuff later, but there we go. We've added a bunch of sounds. So that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll put links to all of that stuff in the YouTube video, so you can check out everything there. And if you have any questions, just message me on Discord, or I will see you in class.